everybody. I'm gonna call the meeting to order, and I don't have an official agenda in front of me, but I think the first order of business is to elect the chair of this committee. Really prefer that it wasn't me.
You make a motion, Katie?
I make a motion, it's Jeff again. We already elected him at the last one.
Okay, well, he did a great job last year.
No, I did it last year.
Yeah.
That's
They
what,
had a meeting last week.
last week we had a meeting, yeah.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. We won't change chairs.
Okay.
But I'll give you this.
Okay,
And slide that over there. Okay,
all right,
all yours, sir.
thank you very much. Welcome committee members, general public. We'll go right into our budget message. Dan, you wanna take it from there?
Morning, everyone. My name is Dan Wilson. I'm the Chief Financial Officer and Budget Officer for Douglas County, and this is the fiscal year 2024-25 budget message. Members of the Budget Committee and citizens of Douglas County, the proposed budget presented today is a balanced budget that totals $209,624,506 and includes 535.30 FTE full-time equivalent positions. This compares to the current revised fiscal year budget of $207,739,756 with 550.3 FTE. All funds summary is attached. The increase of $1,884,750 in the county's total proposed budget over fiscal year 23-24 budget is detailed in the chart below. General fund. Reserves in the public works funds have reached a point where they can no longer support the sheriff's department at past levels. Therefore, an increase in transfers from the general fund will need to fill in the gap. The general fund has reduced FTE by 10.40 overall, which results in a relatively unchanged personnel services cost over last year. Capital outlay has increased by $3.4 million due to Parks Department projects and a large AC unit project in building facilities. Materials and services increased by $477,000. The increase in transfers out, as mentioned above, is largely for the sheriff enforcement and corrections operations. The clerk's department, building department, the South Douglas Justice Court, and the Reedsport Justice Court once again presented budgets that do not require any general fund dollars. Overall appropriations within the fund increased $10.3 million. The budgeted use of fund balance is approximately $23 million, leaving a remaining fund balance of $46.9 million. Public safety. Public safety fund decreased 3 FTE and personnel services increased by $1.1 million or 4%. Materials and services decreased by $249,000 and capital outlay decreased by $742,000. Overall expenditures increased by $59,000. Public Works. The Public Works Fund budget decreased 4.0 FTE. Personnel services increased by $210,000. Materials and services decreased by $2.4 million and capital outlay decreased by $3.5 million. Transfers out largely to the Sheriff's Department decreased by $6.2 million. Overall expenditures decreased by $11.9 million. The ending fund balance is projected to be zero at the end of the fiscal year. Solid waste. In the solid waste enterprise fund, FTE will increase by 1.0. Personnel services increased by $428,000. Materials and services increased by $344,000 and capital outlay decreased by $1.7 million due to the completion of the leachate pretreatment plant. Overall expenditures decreased by $869,000. As a part of the ongoing Department of Environmental Quality Compliance, a deposit of $1 million into a reserve account is estimated for the upcoming year. These funds are being set aside for the future costs associated with the closure and post-closure of the landfills. The ending fund balance is projected to be 14.9 million at the end of the fiscal year. All other funds, the FTE and all the remaining 15 funds combined will increase 1.40. Personnel services will increase by 608,000. Materials and services will increase by 2.2 million. Capital outlay will decrease by 2.4 million, and transfers out to other funds will increase by 3.8 million. Overall expenditures will increase 4.2 million. Federal funding. As of today, the Secure Rural Schools and Community Self-Determination Act of 2000, SRS, has not been reauthorized. We have included this funding in the budget as we feel confident that it will be renewed. The proposed budget includes estimated SRS of 7.4 million in the general fund and 4.6 million in the Public Works Fund, the two major operating funds that receive those dollars. Property taxes. The county will again certify its permanent tax rate in the amount of 1.1124 per $1,000 of assessed valuation. The tax rate is fixed by law and is the fourth lowest in the state. The total amount of property tax the county expects to collect is 13.28 million. This represents 8.2% of the overall revenues of the county. Other funding. The county is budgeted to receive 35.23 million in grants and other intergovernmental funding. This represents 21.8% of the overall revenues. Outside service charges, rents, and fees are budgeted at 39.07 million. This represents 24.1 million of the county's revenues. PERS and other personnel. PERS rates are shown below include the 6% employee pickup. These rates became effective July 1st, 2023 and will remain in effect until June 30th of 2025. PERS costs will total 18.2 million countywide. The proposed budget includes a 3% cost of living adjustment for all general county employees. Negotiated cost of living adjustments and other increases are budgeted within the departments impacted by union bargaining contracts. The proposed budget document includes a general information section, summary section, separate detail section for the general fund, the public safety fund, the health and social services fund, and the public works fund, and another section which contains detailed information on all other county funds. Producing a budget is a collaborative effort. I'd like to thank the budget committee, county departments, and my staff for their contributions.
Thank you, Dan.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
may I just a quick comment? So,
Absolutely.
as you have seen, budget committee members, this budget represents elimination of some additional FTEs. We were in that mode some years ago with our federal lawsuit on the ONC lands working its way through the system. We had great hopes that that lawsuit would rule that the lands managed by the BLM, the ONC lands, would be back to producing a substantial amount of timber receipts as it should be. That case was declined to be taken by the US Supreme Court. Therefore, we don't have that, that to look forward to. So we're now back into the right sizing government to the amount of revenue we have coming in. So over the next several years, we'll have to continue to lessen the number of employees that are here to match the funding that we receive. So that's why it's different.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay, we'll go right into our budget, and first up is our Sheriff's Department. Sheriff Hanlon, welcome.
Good morning, thank you.
It's tab 26, committee members.
Well, good morning, commissioners and members of the budget committee. The budget you have before you reflects the budgetary directions provided by the deputy financial officer and by the board of commissioners. This is a status quo budget. one that maintains our current staffing levels and gives us the ability to maintain sheriff patrols and jail services. Though at an often challenging rate, it is at a tolerable level. The overall increase to this year's budget is largely due to personnel wage and benefit increases. A notable increase worth mentioning is our jail medical contract, which includes a much needed medical assisted treatment, or referred to as a MAP program. The MAP program will allow us to provide 24-hour care to our jail and specifically to treat our most addicted, drug addicted adults in custody in the facility. We've seen over the last year a significant increase in overdoses in the community, probably close to double the number of overdoses that we normally see. And that unfortunately carries over into people that we have in custody at the jail as well. In my opinion, the need for the MAP program and 24-hour medical care in the facility are consequences of exacerbated by Measure 110. Another notable increase to this year's budget is our intra-fund transfer to the 911 dispatch center, which has increased to 73% from last year. This increase is due to the rising cost of running a professional emergency communication center 24/7, and the contract amounts with all of the local police and fire departments only makes up for 2/3 of the total operating cost for the emergency communications 911 center. So with that, if you have any questions on the budget, I'd be glad to answer
One
those.
quick question.
Commissioner Freeman?
Sure, if you talked a little bit about the MAP program, just a rough estimate of the number of folks that are coming into custody that are addicted to drugs, or, you know, suspected to be addicted to drugs.
I would say at least 80%.
So it's a pretty tough population, and of course, drug addiction and the effects of that are hard to predict, and they don't shut off at 5 o'clock, you know, so you have to have medical around the clock. So I think that's a good move.
So is that on this summary page, is that the 205% increase in the correction division, is that what that's?
Yeah. Jeff? One thing I would add is that that increase was for this upcoming year was offset. The county is receiving a large amount of money from the opioid settlement fund, from all of the litigation that's gone on with the overuse of opioids, and we're receiving millions of dollars for that. We're not sure how long it'll last or the duration, but for this next upcoming year, it will be fully funded by those dollars. So it's not a complete hit to the system.
Okay.
I might also add that, and it's pretty important to know, I think, that the majority of the individuals that come into the jail that have ingested drugs or somehow managed to get them sneaked into the facility and then use them or overdose on, it's heroin or more commonly now fentanyl. So it's a very serious situation, and we aren't just experiencing it here, it's a statewide problem.
Okay. So, any other questions? If none, I would entertain a tentative approval motion.
Make a motion to tentatively approve the sheriff's budget.
And I'll second that.
Katie's made the motion to tentatively approve. Commissioner Kress has seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Moving right on to our communications 911 and dispatch. Right back at you, Sheriff. and it is tab 29.
So in the communication center, 911 dispatch, again, personnel costs are the biggest increase. You'll also notice that there's a 6% increase in personnel services, and I'm sorry, 7%. That's due to their incentive increases and benefits increases. Then also in materials and services, you see a 64% increase or change, and that is because we had to replace our dispatch CAD system, or computer automated dispatch software. The program that we had before had reached end of life, and so we were forced to look at a new software system that we've got implemented, and so that's the increase with that. And then again, you'll see a 73% increase there in the reimbursement from enforcement. And that is that interfund transfer that I spoke about, where we pay for a third of the cost of dispatch, the sheriff's office does, and the other 2/3 is paid for through the other departments around the county.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Freeman?
I wanna make sure and note that the sheriff is in charge of running the dispatch center. We've assigned that to him and they do a fantastic job. However, that is not the radio system. Sometimes people get that confused. The sheriff has not yet been assigned the duties of running the radio system. So could be forthcoming, but currently it's a different situation, so sometimes people confuse those things.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. I get a lot of questions about that.
Yeah.
And I don't do radios. I have some people on my staff that understand it much better than I do, but I don't do radios.
Okay. Any other questions on dispatch 911?
Move tentatively approve the dispatch 911.
Commissioner Boyce has made a motion.
I'll second that.
Katie has seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Moving right on to our dog control, tab 41.
So animal control, there's really very little to talk about here. There's a slight reduction in materials and services. And that reduction is due to not having any fleet purchases.
And we still only have one.
No.
I was gonna note that,
Okay.
Lee retired, and to try to keep up with what Lee was doing, we now have two. And they're working hard to try to get even close to what Lee was able to get done, so, and they're doing a good job. It just, you take somebody that amount of experience and that dedication, it takes a lot to catch up to that.
One thing I can add is, so as you all know, Lee Bartholomew was, I mean, he was top notch and did a tremendous amount of work for a one-man band. And like Commissioner Freeman said, so we replaced him with two, and as a result, they're finding a little more time to be a little more proactive and actually do some dog licensing enforcement. In fact, I was just in the lieutenant's office this morning and saw a handful of citations on expired dog tag violations. And so we recognize that we've got a lot of unlicensed dogs out there, and we need to kind of get a handle on that, and we're finally being able to do some of that. I'm not looking for Bella, Commissioner. I know she's licensed. I know she's licensed.
She's good.
Okay,
Question in the back, Jeff.
My first time at one of these. I'm Jennifer Barta. I'm the new executive director at Saving Grace. we have a chance to say?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I'll be quick. So I'm new to Roseburg as well, but hi, how
You
are you?
bet,
I know. But I really have loved Roseburg so far, and I look forward to meeting everybody. I would like to hand out a couple of these so you all can have this if you want to take a look at it sometime.
Thank you.
Obviously, I know you don't have time now, and being that I'm new to Roseburg, I unfortunately did not get here in time to find out more about the budget. So I realized that you all have a lot. Oh no. Okay, so the budget contract that you all provide for us, our contract has been with the county since, gosh, I wanna say 2002. And in 2009, the county paid Saving Grace $153,000 a year. And currently, right now, the county pays $162,000. I'm sure you all understand cost of living, that can be really challenging. I did see that obviously there was a decrease in funding about 4 years ago, and then that went back up, and I'm very grateful for that. I do really want to have you all think about, the love for animals in this county, and very passionate people. The amount of, as we all know, how much Lee did, and now we have 2 officers, and the amount of animals that come in daily, the stray cat population, the stray dog issues, and the hard work that these 2 officers, Mark and Devin, do to bring us. In 2023, we received over 900 animals from law enforcement, and then another about 1,400 from the public that were just stray. So that's not all totally the owner surrender that we get, people losing their homes, so on and so forth, to total 3,773 animals. And if you think about the amount of money spending on the 2 officers, I think that's incredibly important about that cost of living. That's over $100,000 more than we receive in our contract to pay 26 staff, to help pay 26 staff and take care of almost 4,000 animals. And it costs us about $4,000 a day to run the shelter. I would just encourage just to take a look at how we can find some more money to help the animals. We gratefully have an amazing community that likes to support, and it is a nonprofit with a county contract, but it does take a lot of money to make the shelter happen. And I know you all, I see that, I know there's a dog here, so great. You all probably have animals at home, but we're not gonna solve this together unless we put some more money into this and really show the county that we care about the animals. It costs us $60 to spay or neuter 1 cat. I'm sure you all have seen the cats, I've seen them in my yard. And we're working really hard to help the community with the animal population. So I would ask that, just consider that, and if about over 53% of the animals come from stray population that we house, and only about 13% of the budget comes from the county. So for our contract, that's really difficult. So just anything that we can do to think about that for the future. And I look forward to getting to know you all more. And I've only been in Roseburg 3 months, but so far I like it.
Okay.
So thanks so much.
Thank you very much. All right. We will need a motion to
Move
approve.
to tentatively approve the dog control fund.
Commissioner Boyce has made a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Commissioner Kress has seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
Jennifer, could you go through that door right there and talk to our Jennifer, who's in the office, and schedule an appointment where we can sit down and talk about, we'll get you familiar with the overall budgetary picture of the county. And which commissioner wants to have that meeting is not yet decided, but I'm willing to if they're not. Thank you, and thanks for coming today, it's nice to meet you.
Sheriff, I know you're done for the day.
Thank you.
Thank you to your team, your organization for everything they do day in, day out. We appreciate all they do, so
It's our
thank you so
pleasure and
much.
honor, thank you.
Okay. Alrighty, moving on to our public safety fund. This is the DEMP fund. Rick, come on up. Hi, sir.
Hello. It's going fast so far today. See if I
Yeah.
can speed it up even more.
Tab 28.
Good morning, everyone. Kind of repeat from last year, I guess. Actually, I wasn't here last year. The sheriff did this last year, but a repeat from the year before that. My name's Rick MacArthur. I'm a lieutenant with the Douglas County Sheriff's Office, and I'm currently assigned to DENT, which is Douglas Interagency Narcotics Team, as the commander of that team. To explain a little bit of what DENT is, it's an interagency task force, with our job being to interrupt the drug trafficking issues within our community. It's made up of members from the Douglas County Sheriff's Office, currently 6 people from Sheriff's Office, myself being one, and two of our people here today. She's not from the Sheriff's Office, so sorry. I'm getting out of my place here. Roseburg Police Department. They usually have 2 people assigned to the team. They currently don't have any just due to staffing problems there. We anticipate them filling those positions whenever they're able. Oregon State Police has 1 detective assigned to the team. Bureau of Land Management has a special agent assigned to the team. The Douglas County District Attorney's Office has a prosecutor. And the Oregon National Guard Counter Drug Support Program supplies a intelligence analyst to the team. Each of those agencies that I just mentioned, they all of their base salaries are paid for out of their parent agencies. So none of their base salaries are reflected in our budget. But DENT does pay for all of their extraneous expenses, overtime, travel, vehicles, fuel, equipment, etc. We do have 3 support staff that are funded by DENT. One of those is Cheryl, who's there. That's where I messed up earlier. And then two part-time evidence techs that are funded by DENT. When you look at our budget, you will notice HIDA prominently displayed there. That stands for High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area. They supply us a sizable amount of funding, and it's a federal designation that we got back in 2002 to help combat the drug trafficking problems locally. They primarily provide us with overtime funds, funding for vehicles, for fuel, investigative funds, and that sort of thing. Additionally, we have a bunch of more money in there that we don't normally have also, which is the Criminal Justice Commission illegal marijuana fund grant that we put in for initially back in 2022, so a couple years ago, but at that time we just had a relatively small amount coming from them just for equipment. But just recently we reapplied to that grant again, and this time for personnel funding to the tune of about $1.6 million. That is not reflected in this either, mostly because it's reflected in the sheriff's budget, because those personnel are coming from him. A little bit of other stuff too for equipment, some infrastructure things, more overtime money and fuel money, that sort of thing. And I just figured I'd throw this part in because I usually get asked this every year, but just a little overview of what we've done in the past year. For 2023, calendar year 2023, we did 192 criminal cases in DENT. We identified, investigated, and dismantled 5 drug trafficking organizations. Just to explain, those are kind of the really big deal cases. Those are the ones that are months and sometimes years-long investigations into sophisticated organizations that are setting up shop here, of which we have quite a few. Specifically, we always have some level of them, but lately it's been the marijuana thing has been the big thing here with everything that's changed over the last few years. We've been getting a handle on that, which I'll address again here in a second. But in addition to that, we've seized 38.2 pounds of methamphetamine this year, 15.5 pounds of fentanyl, which is an amazing amount when you consider how small the typical usage, the dosage unit of fentanyl typically is. For marijuana, we seized 31,390 marijuana plants and 71,000 pounds of processed marijuana last year, which is down considerably from the last 2 years. So we've been working hard on that and having a big impact, but it's still the third highest year on record for our county. Another change that we've seen lately regarding this stuff is the psilocybin mushrooms seems to be a really big uptick in that, very closely related to the marijuana industry. They kind of go hand in hand, and in particular, we seized 46,427 pounds of psilocybin last year, which is an astonishing amount, considering usually we're at less than a pound. And so there was one case in particular, most of that's from one case, 44,000 pounds of it's from one case. That from all of our research, we believe to be the largest psilocybin seizure in state history.
I hate to stop you in the middle, but
I'm almost done, so you're stopping me right at the end, it's all right.
I just have a question related to mushrooms, but if you know, give us a brief overview of what's happening with mushrooms in the world. I know that there was a recent ballot measure related to mushrooms. I didn't really pay a lot of attention to it. It sort of surprised me that it was that big of a thing. But the one thing that I'm seeing is the relationship between there's talk or happenings going on in the state or in the country about legalizing drugs like marijuana in other states. And as soon as this talk starts to happen, all of a sudden there's a major uptick here, whether it's legal here or not. And I don't know if people don't understand what is legal and where, or if they're just doing it anyway, or if there's just new excitement about it. But there was a ballot measure about these mushrooms that none of that passed in Douglas County, but now all of a sudden a huge uptick in mushrooms. Can you give me your thoughts about that real quick?
Well, essentially, what happens is it's just my opinion, I guess, based on experience, but the drug trafficking organizations, in particular the drug cartels, from all over the world really, but we deal mostly with the ones in Mexico. But we do deal with them from all over the world. But they are very sophisticated and good business people who take advantage of the situations that we have here locally. That's how we got into this mess with the marijuana to begin with. And then they also see opportunities and they take advantage of those opportunities wherever they present themselves. In this case, yes, there's gray area, there's confusion and a lack of clarity on the psilocybin thing, and they sometimes can take advantage of that. In also though, the psilocybin is very closely related to the marijuana. They're both hallucinogens. They're people who like one tend to like the other. The explosion in the marijuana industry in the last few years has given rise to related things like psilocybin to really take hold, and they have. And so there's a whole industry for us.
So the psilocybin measure you're talking about, the ballot measure, really had to do with more of a dispensary model, like the marijuana originally was. And each county, and then each city within each county was able to put on the ballot whether they wanted those type of facilities within their jurisdiction. Douglas County, outside of cities, voted not to have that. And 11 of our cities put it on the ballot, and 11 of the cities said no. Yoncalla was the only city that did not put it on the ballot. But again, that doesn't legalize mushrooms in Yoncalla. It would allow for one of these dispensaries, if it met all the requirements, to be located in Yoncalla city limits.
And much like the marijuana, as the commissioner said, there, even if that were to happen, there's a whole bunch of oversight. There's legal ways to do it and proper ways to do it, supposedly,
Alleged.
and all of that, everything that we saw in that one case, and actually every case that we've had involving psilocybin has been completely black market, completely illegal, and outside the law in every single way.
I think somewhere in all that, I heard you say, not in these exact words, but that marijuana is a gateway drug.
Precisely. Could expand on that, but
Well, you guys have been doing this a long time. I'm really disappointed that you don't have the entire problem solved yet.
it's been a difficult environment lately because,
So, Mr. Chair, I do want to, Rick covered this briefly, but he's the one that put the application in, and I know you had people helping you for the Criminal Justice Commission. I happen to serve on the Criminal Justice Commission, so I got to see the application and watch that process. And in the original rollout of that program, Rick followed all the rules and other counties did not. So other counties received far greater funding than Douglas County did in the first go around. The state had intended just to sort of renew it, and because of the information I was able to get from our DENT team, that we were able to request that the state sort of do a reset, which allowed counties like Douglas County to reapply and include some expenses that they had not included before, and therefore Rick's application, I know you made lots of phone calls, lots of communication with the state to get it right. I think you over doubled what the grant amount was, right?
yeah, about triple.
About tripled, yeah. So, nice job.
Great.
So I was kind of joking about you guys not solving the problem yet, but the point that I really want to make is you guys do a great job, and it's there's a lot of job security in what you do. There's no running out of things to do. And we, as an entity, budget committee and the county have invested in your organization heavily as of late because we understand the need. And I just want the public to know how big of a problem it is and how serious your sheriff and your commissioners in this budget committee are about supporting you guys in the work that you do. It's way bigger than just a local drug dealer peddling out of his basement. Nearly every drug deal that happens in Douglas County goes through an entire network of hands that originates with some drug cartel somewhere. And so you guys are aware of all that and do a tremendous job of tying all that together and keeping literally hundreds of thousands of pounds of drugs of various types from getting to the street. And that, which is mind-boggling to me considering the amount that's still out there. But great job, we appreciate you.
Thank you. And you're having an impact. I mean, you just go back 4 years ago, and you had these huge grows that were just everywhere. Now you guys have put enough pressure on them that they're dispersed, they're smaller, they're more spread out, and they're producing less drugs. Largely because you guys have made it difficult for them to do business here in Douglas County. And it, it's not a huge line item, but if you notice the forfeiture piece, taking their stuff when they're using it to do illegal activities has an impact. And sometimes they have pretty nice stuff. And if you're a business and you say, boy, if I go to Douglas County, they're gonna take my tractor, they're gonna take my trailer, they're gonna take my pickup, maybe I'll go try that in another county. And that's what you've done. And that's hard to reflect in numbers, but on the ground, you can see it. and it makes a big impact.
You can see it better from the air.
I bet, yeah, I don't have that luxury, but
We do have some surrounding counties who do less of that, and they do have a major problem with marijuana grows in particular, where they will go in and arrest people, eradicate all the plants, and then the people will go back in and they don't do forfeiture, they don't seize all those things, and the people will go back in the next day and start replanting. It's a very common thing in some of our surrounding counties, not all of them, but some of them. And
you
so,
also talked about fentanyl, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but they've done drug busts, large enough fentanyl drug bust. I think one of them, there was enough lethal doses in that one bus to kill everybody in Douglas County twice. And that sounds like it would be a trainload of fentanyl, but it's not very much in physical size. That stuff's pretty nasty and pretty potent, so if you think about getting that much off the street, that's somebody's kid somewhere that won't get a hold of a fake tablet of some kind and die, so you guys are doing great work.
the biggest effect right now is the border crisis, which is not something this budget committee has control over, but if that border crisis could get resolved, we could
We
make a
might
lot
should
more
do a
headway.
tour though.
Not sure I wanna really see what's happening there.
Thinking of somewhere a little nicer than exactly on the border.
So the $305,000 that you have proposed forfeitures.
Mhm.
And you're just basing that off of, you think you're gonna double what you did last year? That seems like that's 101% increase.
Yes,
Some plans that you know that it's gonna be that much? Oh, okay, that's a large increase.
Takes 2 years to go through the process from when they take it to when they sell it, so they know what they have.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah.
this is what you're gonna sell, you already have
Yeah.
that in stock.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's the revenue comes in after.
okay,
Takes several years to go through the forfeiture process.
so I'm glad to see you're taking it. That was kind of my complaint before I had that question a few years back, and they told me there was so much to the legal process, they weren't sure if it was worth it, and so I'm glad to see you're doing it.
You're a gem.
It's
Yeah.
taken some investment, and we gotta store all that stuff, we gotta inventory all of it, it's the process.
In the long run, I think it will slow them down, like he said, they don't wanna come here if you're gonna take their cars and their
but also, I
tractors.
should also say we have a forfeiture council who works very hard on doing the legal side of that too.
Yeah, there's a lot of work to it.
And she does a tremendous amount of work there too, helps us tremendously. It's a very key piece to that.
And also Dent has been involved in some big busts in this county that have made press quite a bit, that didn't have any drug charges brought. So Dent is assisting in or did you think they were gonna be drugs and there just didn't end up being?
No, we didn't really think there would be in the case you're talking about. But that happens sometimes. We're still police officers. We assist all local law enforcement in any way that we can. That case just kind of landed in our lap, and sometimes when a case lands in your lap, you just run with it. And that's what happened in that case. So we just ran with it and we tried to see it through to the end. We ended up working with the sheriff's office quite a bit in that case also. But yeah, we did a lot more work than normal in that case for a case that did not have a drug nexus.
So with a case similar to that one where you're working for feds, because a lot of those charges are gonna end up being federal charges, are the feds going to reimburse you? Do we get money back from the feds or?
Case by case basis, in that case, there won't be anything like that. I really don't believe.
Okay,
There are cases where that does happen, especially when there's forfeiture is usually the way that would happen. But there's also a thing called OCDEF, which is a federal designation for investigations, large scale investigations and all that, but it has to happen ahead of time. And this case was just too fast and too organic for something like that to happen. It was closed before something like that could take place. So yeah, in that case, we probably won't see any reimbursement from the federal government. But we do in several others.
We'll make a motion to tentatively approve the Dent budget.
Commissioner Freeman's made the motion,
I'll second.
Commissioner Boyce has seconded. Any other discussion or questions? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Losing our audience.
Seems like the whole audience.
The Public Works guys will come in and backfill it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Do you know
that's
why the
true.
door's closed? Scott, can you go ahead and open that door up, please?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Must be a public meeting. Door's open.
Half public meeting?
Half open.
He's gonna bring enough people.
All right,
It's
we've
gonna
got
open.
Public Works, tab, is it tab 48? Oh, Public Works Fund tab there to start with, yeah.
Got their own
This is Public
tab.
Works.
Its own
Got their
tab.
very own tab, no number.
Scott's a big deal.
No, they did that because I get lost easy.
Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Let's see. So everybody's on 167, I believe, and that's the Public Works Fund. Only pretty much this picture is about the same as it was last year. There is one little caveat. It says county project manager. We have added a project manager from a different section of the county to just do countywide type of projects. And that's coming out of the management finance fund. So, but that's under my leadership. Otherwise, as we work into Public Works, the Public Works Fund, we'll just jump right into the next page with the summary of the funding balances. We've got a little bit different picture this year. Our beginning fund balance is $10 million. We're kind of have came up to that fiscal cliff that we've always talked about of what to do when it gets there and whatnot, and we're there now. The going through the total resources, and we'll talk about this as we move through it. You know, we have the Secure Rural Schools SRS funds at $4.5 million, and I believe there was a little bit of discussion earlier that segued into this, so I don't have to go over that. The state motor vehicle fees is 11.7 million. We're showing an increase of 4% on that. I have reservations about the state motor vehicle fees because it's a fluctuation and it all is depending on electrical cars, and this is the state gas tax fund and whatnot that we get revenues from
And the
the
economy.
state and the economy.
People are traveling or not.
And so as we had a good forecast through the winter, I'm not sure that forecast will stay the same. There's a lot of things in play this year that could change that drastically. ODOT as well is not, hasn't made any changes to how they quantify the revenues from the state gas tax, and get any fees out of the electrical cars. Like we talked last year, Oregon is numbered in the top 3 that sell electrical cars, you know, about 1,000 a month. That's still ranking high. And so we'll continue to push on the state to come up with a solution for the state highway fund, and hope that they can come up with something to help with our revenues.
Is there any, the federal infrastructure package that passed Congress that everybody talks about, do we see that in a revenue line anywhere?
The revenue line, we would see that in as the other, and those funds will come through ODOT, through our any bridge or capital infrastructure items and projects, but nothing towards maintenance. So our most all the federal Jobs and Transportation Act, or JT2A, whatever the little nickname is for it. That's all capital projects, and we've applied for those, but those are kind of getting, the feds are dragging their feet on authorizing a lot of those right now.
The reason I bring that up is we hear our federal elected officials talk about, you know, this package and how important it was and how it's helping everybody. But want the budget committee to just look back at the actual 2021, how much higher that other line is than revised budget from last year or the proposed budget for this year. That money has yet to make its way to a county level, if it ever is going to. So when you hear them talk about, make sure you push back and say, well, that might help somebody somewhere, but it's not helping our 1,400 miles of road and our over 300 bridges yet.
Correct.
Sorry, go ahead.
And we're hoping that when we talk about bridges, that those bridge numbers will come in, but the cost of bridge replacement has increased drastically to where they're talking about reducing the amount of bridges that are on that bridge list now. And so what they talked about funding with that Jobs and Transportation Act is getting absorbed. So that's why I said they're dragging their feet on getting those projects out. And so the other line item, that's the ODOT intergovernmental match funds that we put towards all these capital projects we just talked about. And I'll go through that real quick on a separate sheet and we'll talk about those projects here in a second. Fines, fees, interest down obviously. And then transfers in for Title III is 4.95 million, or 4.952, and that's for the replacement of a couple of bridge structures throughout the county. So that brings a total revenue with the beginning fund balance of 34.9 million. Our total requirements will match that number, but we'll go back up to the top over personnel. We're showing a 3% growth. That is with a 4 FTE reduction in our maintenance staff. If we didn't do that 4 FTE reduction, we'd probably be around a 14%. So trying to balance our expenses a little bit in the personnel, and we'll have to continue to look at that over the next couple of years as that trend continues to grow in personnel. And materials and services as well. We'll have that balance. We're showing some cuts that we made in materials and services, about 2.5 million. And then our capital outlay is 13.5 million, but that's majority of that is for infrastructure. There's no iron in that. There's no vehicles, no equipment. That's a zero line item this year. And so we'll continue to look at those and balance them out as these changes occur over the next couple of years. So operating contingency, Dan keeps me covered at 300K with that in case we get a slide or some effect that we didn't have.
See, that actually seems pretty small considering some of the things you guys have had to deal with.
It is.
You get a Snowmageddon event and that $300,000 is gone in a couple of hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just taking the trees out from the from the fire out in Umpqua, that was 125,000 or something, just taking some hazard trees out.
Gee, we made so much on that, didn't we?
What's that?
And we made so much revenue on that, right?
We didn't make any revenue.
It's actually costing us money now, every day.
Yeah. Yeah, those slides and those pieces can add up, and of course we'll come to the board and declare or ask for like declaration of emergency to open up any venues we could if those things happen, but that is more baggage to those incidents that we would have to work through, where in the past we had some of those loaded into our line items to pay for and get us at least started.
And frankly, wouldn't you just, to your point, you get down to this time of year, there'd be projects that you have slated to do that you just wouldn't be able to do if you didn't have that revenue in there, if we had to use it all up.
Correct. So transfers out has been a large reduction this year. Nothing to the forest management fund, nothing to the radio fund. The public safety fund's getting the 4.8 or 4.58 million. Our total expenditures are down by 11.8 million to 34,878. Again, the 4 FTE reduction helps in the personnel, but it's just a minor balance that we'll have to, like I said, continue to look at.
I wanna make sure the budget committee gets the transfer, so this Squirrel School thing is an interesting little animal we have to play with. It expired October of last year. We just received the payment. But right now, we're back on actual timber receipts. If it gets renewed, we'll get the payment during this budget cycle next year of that amount. This budget proposes to take the Forest Service SRS, which can be used for patrol, and transfer that amount into the sheriff's budget, which is about half of the cost of patrol. So the other half of that cost of patrol is coming out of general fund reserve. But historically, we've had enough in the road fund reserve to do the whole transfer for sheriff's patrol. So this year was, quite the difference, but there's no extra, if that SRS doesn't come, there's no extra money in the reserve to take, so we'll end up having to take that from general fund or change the sheriff's budget. I know that's kind of complicated, but that's why that amount is the same as what the Forest Service SRS amount is. Sorry.
Wait, no, perfect.
These things all kind of work together.
It's easier for me to let you guys explain that sometimes. So, just kinda jumping into, if you guys could go to page 173. This is where our capital outlay projects are. This is the projects that we're working on that we're, that I would say is the crux of engineering other than maintenance. We have maintenance and then we have our engineering side, and our engineering team is putting together these projects right now. So we got the road improvements, which are two safe routes to school projects down in Canyonville and Glendale. The reason why these are drastic numbers is they're different phases of the project. So these will come in next year and they'll have a different number with them, and it doesn't give the total quantity of what the actual project is. I have that on a different spreadsheet. But just sitting, I gave a report to a group earlier this year. We're sitting on around $52 million worth of grant projects right now, and capital improvement projects that Public Works is working on. And these all roll up to that. But these safe routes to school projects, we're looking at, for Canyonville, we're looking at bidding actually in the fall of 2024. And that project's gonna be a total of around $5.5 million. And Azalea Glendale project is about the same. And we're hoping, right now, we're hoping we can get a little bit fast tracked on the plans and also get a fall or winter bid on it. It's a little bit behind the Canyonville project, but there's some stuff in the Canyonville project that's delaying it with some regulatory wetland type permitting stuff that's dragging it out that we haven't got back from those groups on. Or Glendale should have that trigger, so. And then we jump into the bridges. I don't know if we wanna talk about safe routes to school or anything. That is something we've worked on since I started here.
Well, just to say that I think on average, a county would get one of those every 10 years. And these two represent what, number 3 and number 4 in the last 8 years? So you guys have done a really good job. And these projects for little communities like, Glendale and Canyonville literally change the way the communities look. The Canyonville project takes sidewalks from downtown where they stop kind of by City Hall there, and takes it all the way out to the casino. In Glendale, it's gonna take them from, some more of the downtown area all the way out to the school. And in both of those areas, that just is a tremendous improvement. Now there is a substantial match that we are approving today. So even though these are grant funds from the state, and this is a great program, this does take a commitment from the county to make it happen.
Yeah, these are around a 50% match. The future safe routes to school funds will be, they're pulling down to a 20% match, but these current ones are at 50%. So, anything else on that? Okay, so jumping into the bridge culvert projects, we have a lot of bridges in play right now. The Rice Creek Bridge was realistically finished last this last summer, but we still have a plan establishment period where we're gonna make sure we monitor the plants, get them to grow, so that project still has a little bit of budget left on it. But the Oakland Con Ford bridges, as you guys have probably seen out in those areas, the Oakland bridge has been almost completed. We still have to remove the old historic bridge. And Conford Bridge has been, the deck's been poured on it, and they're doing the rails right now on the side of it. We look to have it done by the end of summer and have these bridges sometime through this next, probably by winter, completed and have traffic fully on them. Oakland has traffic on it now. Those were, you know, midline of $25 million worth of bridges right there. And so those are our two big ones for the county at this stage. The next ones are the Days Creek Bridge on Days Creek Road. We have South Myrtle, South Deer Creek, Bilger Creek, Hinkle Creek, and McCullough Creek. Hinkle Creek and McCullough are the Title III funded projects. So those are got a lot to play. We're trying to get out as many bridges as we can as we get funding for them. We can ramp up for more if we got it, but we'll do everything we can with what we got for now.
So the Title III funded projects, of course, are allowed. We were able to get a change in the Title III allowable expenditures to include carrying out the wildfire protection plan. So these bridges have been identified in that plan as critical access for fire, and therefore the Title III dollars. And by the way, that took an act of Congress to change. And
Literally.
we Douglas County, ONC counties sort of led the charge on that, and it's proving to be a pretty important aspect when the forest is on fire. Getting fire trucks and fire equipment into these fires is critically important, and this allows that to happen. I was on a fire up at a tiller where they were having to haul equipment over an hour around a bridge because the bridge is weight restricted, and an hour both ways each day while the fire is raging and burning is a substantial amount of time. So these are important bridges.
Yeah, the bridge up north was way more than that. We had to go from Glide all the way around through.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was much more than an
You
hour.
know that better than me.
It was
so.
a long
Yeah.
route because of that bridge. That bridge is still not going. They're still going around.
Which one's that?
It's up going into like Canton Creek. You gotta go clear up around.
Oh, yes.
Yes, you gotta come in from Eugene.
I think that's a
Yeah.
Forest Service or BLM bridge, and that's not one of ours,
Oh, okay.
if I remember right.
Yes, you're correct. We have about maybe a half mile of right of way on Steamboat Creek.
So that's not your bridge?
Before the bridge.
I was hoping you were gonna fix that bridge too. So how are you doing in the bridge plan? We discussed a bridge plan a while back and how many bridges there was that needed to be repaired.
Yeah, we're averaging like 1.2 a year. When I started here back in 17, I was around 0.8 bridges a year.
And refresh our memory, how many bridges do we have total? How many are under some sort of restriction or limitation at this point?
We have 300 bridges, 1,400 miles of roads. We're probably at around 40% of our bridges are structurally deficient, which means they're not load rated. And then we have probably about 40 or 50 bridges that are what I would call in really bad shape, to where we're monitoring them daily or weekly. We have repairs going out on them. We're trying to make sure they're signed appropriately. We're watching them. The one on South Umpqua was one of our worst ones, where we were able to get it funded finally. The whole bottom of it basically fell out. You could walk underneath it and see the rebar. There's chunks of concrete the size of these tables falling off from under the bridge. We had a single lane for a long time, and we put a shoe fly detour temporary bridge in. We've also, with that, we've bought a lot of the girders from the Willamette River Bridge and have stockpiled them around the county. And then since then, we did that the last 2 years, and then this last year we bought another 20 of them, of those girders, those concrete girders, and some of them are being used out on Melrose Bridge, Concord right now, and then when they're done with that project, we'll get them and we'll place them around the county for even some more on-call bridges. We figure we can put those up within probably a 2-week period in places where we need them.
The challenge we have, of course, is we've exhausted our road fund reserve account, so the number of bridges per year that we're able to accomplish no longer is under our control. Now it's more with, the Transportation Infrastructure Act that was passed, or other funding coming in is the only way we're gonna be able to continue to do bridges.
Yes.
The purchase of those spare parts, if you will, was a good move, strategic in a bunch of different ways.
It's basically the cost of hauling them, right?
Yep, it was the cost of hauling them, and it was a first come, first serve, and we just jumped on it as soon as we heard them come up
Save
available.
more than that just on this bridge replacement, cause they used them. Reduced how much they charged us to do the bridge.
Yeah. And having those strategically placed around the county, you think about a bridge that we have right now that's structurally deficient that we could build an alternate if we needed to, is just part of the big picture. You got a Cascadia subduction zone earthquake looming in the future, and what that means afterwards, and having the ability to have those around to put up if we need them is gonna be big. Hopefully we don't have to worry about it in our lifetimes, but there's a whole bunch of good reasons to have those.
Have a traffic accident where somebody hits a bridge like, happened in Scottsburg, and all kinds of things can happen, so.
Yeah, the counties make up for 2/3 of the state's infrastructure. I think there's like 3,446 county bridges across the state out of the 7,000-ish. We have 300, we're the second biggest county in bridges, second biggest in roads, and we have a diminishing revenue source and an aging infrastructure. All those bridges were built in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, 150 of them. They were built with a 50-year lifespan. I think
Built with timber dollars.
all built with timber dollars and accessing timber land. So we have I would say I talked earlier about an infrastructure cliff or a fiscal cliff. Our infrastructure cliff is leering, and we're trying to delay that and soften that curve of that cliff as much as we can with maintenance and repairs. We'll continue to do that and look for different avenues and resources and technology and stuff like that.
Just for myself to have that information, if you were to kind of throw an estimate out there of, in a perfect world, if you could snap your fingers and take care of all the bridges that need to be taken care of today, at today's dollar.
Well, we did this call, is why I'm laughing, is when you first got here, we had a call with Representative Fazio, and you had that number then, and I made the ask, it was $200 million. Today, that's gotta be close to 400, right?
Yeah, 4 or
Is it
5.
okay?
Yeah,
Because of inflation?
just because of the cost of doing projects.
Because of inflation and materials, our projects have doubled in price since I've got here in materials and labor.
Scott was on that call and he got real quiet when I made that ask, but they asked us for the number, so I told them what it was. It's that kind of number.
Yeah, that's what I thought it would be.
And I mean, there's bigger picture stuff too. I mean, even if we did get the funding, the labor sources aren't there.
Yeah, that's,
We have to ramp up somehow to even to get there.
Right.
So,
even if you got the 400 million, probably by the time you get through most
Our
of
federal congressional
short still.
delegation is well aware of this issue, and literally Douglas County took the jurisdiction of many of these roads and bridges because we did have that federal revenue stream from shared timber receipt program. It made sense for the
Sure.
county to do. We had bridge builders, we had a whole bridge crew here that built bridges. So we had the infrastructure and the staffing and the ability to build all these bridges and the revenue to do it. We find ourselves now in a situation where we don't have the revenue even to maintain them, let alone replace them as they're becoming, their lifespan has been used. It's time to replace them, and there's no there's no way to do it. So we literally are contemplating how we give those bridge jurisdictions and roads back to the state and federal government. We just aren't gonna be able to take care of them. But that's a bigger discussion.
So how many of the bridges, I know you said this other numbers, but how many, you said 40% are structurally restricted, how many of them are unsafe for like a fire truck or a school bus? Do we have any of those bridges? Or have you been able to maintain those enough that there's
We try to keep them at a minimum point where
fire truck?
emergency services can get over them, but like for use of that South Myrtle Bridge, and for instance, we couldn't get a school bus, you couldn't get a 1-ton crew cab pickup across it without it being over its weight limit. And so that's why we popped in that bridge off to the side of it, single lane, temporary structure. It doesn't have the deep foundations like a new bridge, but it will hold those services, and we can get fire trucks and school buses, and South Myrtle accesses forest land, so we can get any harvesters or timber or fire support up there too. So but to answer the question, we're for unsafe, it's try to wander around that conversation a little bit. But we have, like I said, we have bridges of concern that we're putting maintenance into and trying to keep them up to a minimum level that would not create a safety issue. So
And ODOT's the one that weight restricts the bridges and speed restricts them, right? I mean, they come into assessments.
yeah, so ODOT does all the weight limit or the load rating assessments on them. Those are all a federal requirement, so ODOT has an agreement with FHWA. FHWA mandates, here's the criteria, and they always change that criteria. When there is a bridge failure, we see a new set of criteria come down from the top, and next thing you know is we're not only fighting infrastructure just deteriorating, but we also fight new rules being put in place. You'll see some of the new emergency vehicle signs going up. Those signs are within a couple miles of I-5 that showcase any of the EV load ratings.
So what does that mean, like right here in town where it says emergency vehicle and it talks about load rating?
That's the new signage just come in from the feds that they want the any bridges load rated, they want emergency vehicles assessed as well. And that's within a certain radius of I-5.
So that means the emergency vehicles they must know the weight rating on them, and if they're over that rating, they can't go across them?
Bridge.
Okay.
And in talking to the fire districts, they're trying to keep their trucks a little lighter, and so they can skirt under those and get across. We have a couple bridges we've signed like that, and then the others are outside that radius, and we don't sign them for emergency vehicles. They just go to whatever the load rating is that's out there at the time.
I know we spent some time on it, but it's good conversation that is,
I think you guys just need to be aware of it.
Absolutely.
The budget committee drove the conversation about spending the reserve funds to do the bridges that we could do, so
Yep.
just need to be aware that we've sort of reached the end of that.
okay? Anything else on this one, Scott, for you, or?
No, and
Okay.
unless you guys have more questions or want more conversation.
Okay, Commissioner Kress has made the motion to tentatively approve.
I'll second.
Commissioner Boyce has seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. We will move on to our Water Development Fund, tab 48.
Alright, so the Water Development Fund, or Water Resources Development Fund, is the Galesville and Berry Creek Dam projects that were built many years ago, and we had those funds we were talking about, those historical funds. We do get some water sales out of Berry Creek and Galesville. There's been some minor changes this year with some of those contracts, as well as power generation out of Galesville. Galesville's been dormant with power generation for the last probably year and a half or two, with some upgrades that we've had to do as a requirement with the PPNL, as well as they've reduced our rate to a fifth of what we were getting historically. We are currently still working on trying to challenge that rate that they've given us. I'm able to put a little bit more resources to that, over the next, probably year or so, since, I don't, get to dabble in the solid waste, projects anymore. And so, due timing, because as you see, some of these, revenues and resources are getting a little closer together. And so, we'll work through this real quickly. We're showing a beginning fund balance of a little bit of $1 million, but every year we pull out of that a little bit because we're behind every year on this. We're looking at revenues from our water sales and charges of $320,000, intergovernmental stuff of $83,000, and some interest of $30,000 for a total revenue of $433,000. Our expenses continue to grow in the personnel and the materials and services. The materials and services and capital outlay are for some of those projects. There is a transfer out to general fund. We're looking at a total expenditure of $1.26 million. We're sitting at the 3.25 FTE. We haven't changed any of that, although there may be some adjustments in the future. One thing we did change this year is the funding of the assistant water master. It's been something that we have not engaged in this year and have quit funding the assistant water master position. And so we'll use those resources internally in-house. The state will have to take over the funding of that position.
Okay.
Will they?
What's that?
Will they? Will the state take over the funding of the position?
Currently, they have a couple of assistant water master positions out for recruitment. From what we've heard from them, they will, but they may be a regional, so may not be housed here every day. But they will be picking up that side.
We'll move to tentatively approve the Water Development Fund.
Okay, Commissioner Freeman has made the motion. Katie has seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Moving on to our Fleet Management Fund, it's tab 58.
Alright, so the fleet management fund, realistically, we're not really shown, we're just trying to stay status quo this year with the fleet management fund. There's really no changes in FTE. We have a little bit of a increase in interdepartmental charges. Mostly that's due to, we're looking at, we increased an internal rate for our shop rate. We're looking at some inflation, and then we padded the fuel a little bit again this year. We're just not sure what's gonna happen with the change of events politically over the next year, and what that's gonna do to fuel, and that tends to go up and down quite a bit. So
November.
yeah, we keep that kind of a padded number. It can change us drastically with the amount of fuel that the county goes through. And so that's why we show that being up a little bit. We're not transferring out to general fund this year. That gives a total of total resources of 6.817. And then our requirements, we're gonna match. Personnel has went up to 12%. That's kind of the accurate number. I was gonna say like earlier in the public works fund, we would have saw. But since there's no changes in FTE, that's the 12% due to COLAs, some of the Teamsters union members, and just some of the baggage that comes along with personnel. I'm sure Dan talked about that a little bit. Materials and services, we're holding pretty close to the same, or we're gonna try to. Capital outlay is at $344,000. So last year we pre-bought, knowing that inflation was gonna hit us on some vehicles, mostly around the sheriff's department. So our capital outlay this year is a little lower. Down below, you can see the capital outlay that we have a shop heater that doesn't work anymore. We're gonna purchase a new one. That's pretty much it for fleet. The rest of it is outside departments that flow through fleet. The upfitting of the sheriff patrol vehicles for $121,000. That was from the ones we bought for the sheriffs this last year. And then marine patrol truck and the upfitting, a vehicle for senior services and 2 vehicles for the building department. Brings that capital outlay to a total of $344,500. The put a contingency in there because of all those fun things we talked about earlier of unknowns, inflation, fuel, items like that. And that basically is a wrap on fleet.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
So-
Freeman.
I know how important the fleet service is for all the departments that use fleet services, but I wanna just take a quick moment. During emergencies, you and your entire team always step up and you have certain folks that you have sort of in your divisions that are, go-to folks. Omar, your fleet manager, is one of those guys. And I'm gonna tell you, that guy is spectacular. When there's an emergency going on and we need him to do something, he just gets stuff done. And it is so nice to make a simple phone call and it's gonna get taken care of. And sort of outside his fleet job, he's been helping us with our emergency management building, sort of figuring out what to do there, since it's, on site very close to where he is. And he's just been a great asset, so be sure and thank him on behalf of us.
Sure.
He does a great job.
Any other questions on fleet?
But he needs an Omar.
Recruited Omar. Recruited Omar.
You did good.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Okay. No other questions, motion?
Tentatively approve the fleet budget.
Commissioner Boyce made the motion to tentatively approve. Commissioner Kress has seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. All right. One more, Scott here, the work crew, tab 27.
Do we still have a work crew? Thought we didn't have a work crew anymore. We do?
Good segue, Katie. This work crew is hanging on by a thread.
Okay.
We're keeping it going. It's tight. It's a challenge because the budget is so tight. The clients, we call them clients, those are the work crew members we get from parole and probation. We don't get as many as we used to. The drug laws in the state have changed and drastically have changed this program. We would hope that, legislation and the state changes some of those back, but we can't hold our breath that long. And so, it is important. They still do important work. We get about a crew a day, which is 8 to 10 individuals, probably on an average of 4 to 5 days a week. On days we don't get a full crew, we'll get a handful of people, 2 or 3. These folks will assist our public works crews with flagging and brush removal and painting and power washing, and they assist the solid waste team at the transfer sites and the landfill. They're out doing cleanups with ODOT. We have contracts with ODOT in almost every city to do cleanups of various natures. Lately, it's been a lot of homeless cleanups, a lot of, we work side by side with their police departments and their city staff to make sure they're tagged correctly. And they'll help us with cleanups of RVs out on our right of way. So we get them out there. It's a smorgasbord of work, but they still are very important. And if we can, they're an important asset to the county. We would need many more employees if we didn't have a work crew, and they do help with that quite a bit. But with that, it is extremely important that we continue to support those those laws that will help get us those numbers, in a couple different ways, but
It's the laws and it's the judges. So when they get assigned work crew as part of their sentence and their ability to make things right for what they've done, oftentimes they don't show up. And there's really, the accountability for that has changed over time, where they're able to sort of come and go as they want. That's also part of the problem. But you're right, it is some of the drug laws, the amount of sentencing has gone down, but also those that are sentenced to work crew aren't held as accountable as they once were by the judges.
I'm gonna get off on a tangent I probably don't need to get on related to what Commissioner Freeman said, but we do this work with Pro and Probation with LIPSIC, the Local Public Safety Coordinating Council. And one of the things that drives me crazy is the entire focus of this effort is to reduce recidivism, get people to stop committing crimes, become active participants in society. And you would think that a part of that work would be teaching people accountability that they're gonna need to have in order to show up to a job someday. And so when, one of the things that I've been working with Pro and Probation on is this very issue. Number one is that we have to have some sort of ability to plan on some predictable number of folks showing up so that we can commit to go do these jobs that the program gets paid for. The second thing is that there has to be some level of accountability for people who sign up to come and then don't show up. And that's the piece that's missing. And I've been working hard with Pro and Probation to try to introduce a sanction into the program where if you, give me something. You got a time frame that you gotta meet in order to meet your obligation in whole. Or there's a sanction if you commit to show up and you don't show up, that instead of having to make up that 8-hour day, now you've got 10 hours or something. But we just cannot get the state folks to recognize the importance of any of that. So what we have left here is a program where the county is trying to facilitate giving these folks an opportunity to meet their requirement to society, which we're really not obligated to do.
Court-ordered requirement.
Right. It doesn't have to be the county that does that, but we're trying to create that opportunity. We feel like it's important. We're trying to use that as a way to save the county and other municipalities money by getting these jobs done at a lesser rate than they would have to pay a contractor to do them, because it needs to happen. And to try to teach some life lessons to the folks that are participating in the program. And again, we just cannot get the folks at the state to recognize the importance of any of that. And as you can see, budgetarily, the thing that makes the most sense for us to do is just, we're not doing it anymore. So we'll continue to work on it, but it's one of the many frustrations that we have in doing this work. Seems like it all makes sense, but it apparently doesn't.
I think we have no lack of work for sure, to
Yeah.
the point. We have lots
there's
of
a
work, and
demand
you
for
notice
the-
the largest customer work crew is Douglas County. We could expand on that, we could change that if we had more opportunities elsewhere. You know, we could clearly generate more revenue for Douglas County as well, if we had the clients.
and we don't,
We use them a lot.
we use them a lot, and we used to have a program for the fire that went from this to the next step was a fire program.
We had a whole fire crew,
It had a whole fire crew, still have a lot of.
outfitted fire crew.
Would like to get back to that, we just don't have the numbers to even play with that yet, so, we're building a plan in hopes that we can put something together for it in the future, but yeah, this is a small program, but it's got large issues.
You know, we get criticized sometimes for looking at the county as a whole or operations within the county as a business. But I will tell you that there is a reason why we do that. A business out in society and the public, it can't continue to exist if it doesn't pay its own way. It has to pay its own way. It's got a pencil on paper or it goes out of business. This program is a business model that can be very, very successful, to do a lot of great things for the public. To save the public a ton of money in getting necessary things like homeless camp cleanups and derelict properties cleaned up and code enforcement and help at the landfill, and I mean, the list is really endless. To helping these folks learn some responsibility and get them out of the system, and there's just a whole, it's so frustrating to me that this piece could be such a great thing that aside from a little or a lot of bureaucratic red tape, we struggle with it every year. It's ridiculous.
But on that, I would tentatively move to approve.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Kress has made the motion, Katie has seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Scott, thank you.
Thank you
Very
all.
much.
And this is coming into my 7th year here, and I thank you guys for all the support and all the work you've done for these programs. So we've came a long way. It kinda looks a little dire in our numbers, but we'll keep striving for the best we can.
Hey, this might not be the right venue for this, but I'm just gonna tell you. We were having a conversation the other day about you and what an asset you become. And, you know, I was the liaison to Public Works when you applied for this job. And you weren't the first pick, and you weren't the second pick, but you were the third pick. And it's been a great choice. You've grown into the position, Scott, and we can rely on you for things that are just outstanding, the work that you do here, and good job, so.
Thank you. You know me, I like to come from behind.
We were just talking about what an asset you were the other day, so.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate it very much, Scott.
Alright.
Thank you. All right.
So have
Nick.
Grubhub.
I was gonna say.
Grubhub.
Solid Waste Fund.
$15 cup of coffee when it's here.
Tab number 51.
Probably would have paid twice that.
Should have been twice.
Hi, sir.
Good morning,
How are you?
doing well, how about
Good.
yourself?
Good.
Let's see, we're at tab 51 for solid waste. I'll say throughout the past year, the solid waste department has continued to focus on increasing regulatory compliance and also streamlining operational efficiencies. And so we'll look to continue that as we move forward. Most notably, on the first page here, you'll see we now have the solid waste treatment plant, which is operated by 2 FTE, a supervisor, and basically a number 2 position there. And so those have been included, resulting in 1 additional FTE to the program. The other FTE was taken out of the transfer station operations side. Overall, looking at revenues, we're up 5%. Really, that just comes back to last year me being overly conservative, and then again, kind of streamlining some of our operations and cleaning up some of how we're invoicing, and a few other changes have resulted in a more predictable revenue stream. And so we're confident that in that 5% increase. Interest, as you can see, is expected to increase. As far as other revenues, a large portion of that increase is due to equipment sales that will take place over this next year because of equipment that we purchased this fiscal year. So we're essentially phasing out old equipment and being able to sell that equipment on the open market. Overall, you can see we're expecting a 10% revenue increase. move down, anything to discuss there? One note of importance this year, we also split the transfer site and the landfill operation from each other. So a lot of what we'll see as the changes will be on this first page. It's not as easily to discern those changes as we move forward and look at just the landfill operation or just the transfer site operation, because we won't be able to see years past. Obviously, we'll just have this year's forecast, which is essentially unchanged from what we had forecast this past year. It's just been now split between transfer sites and landfill.
Thank you for doing that. It'll be nice to see the difference broken out.
As we move forward,
For a
I
lot
think
of
it'll make
reasons. Yeah,
more
thank you.
sense. If there's no questions there, I'll move on to requirements. Personnel services, we're seeing a 13.4% increase. That's due to negotiated wage increases mostly and the additional FTE. Materials and services increasing by 7%, and that's just an overall increase in what we're seeing as costs of materials and services. So, you know, inflationary costs that are being passed down from the businesses that we deal with directly to us. We've managed that, continued to stay pretty lean there on materials and services. So that 7%, there's really nothing we could do to improve that number. As far as capital outlay, we are currently commissioning the leachate pretreatment plant and expect that to wrap up just before the end of this fiscal year. So that's the biggest change in capital outlay is finalizing that plant, no longer having that outgoing. As far as overall totals on the requirements, we're actually down 6% on total expenditures. So overall, with that capital outlay decreasing by the margin that it is, our total expenditures will drop.
Oh, just one real quick. The annual contribution to the closure, post-closure account, is that a percentage of revenue or is it a set amount? I see that it's changed over the years.
It is a factor of an estimate of what it will cost in the future to do that. And
When we have to do it.
and what we have to set aside to meet that cost, and it's ever changing.
And divided by the life.
Think about how much time you have left, when you
how
have
much
to do
time
it.
you have, and based on the engineer's estimates, the tonnage we bring in, how much we export out as a factor and all that. And it changes year after year, so it's a bit of a guess each year.
So here's a question you're not gonna be able to answer along this line. This is a long ways from being finalized, but we are attempting to acquire additional property to put another cell in. If we're successful in that, does that change the date of the closure for this calculation?
It can.
It might.
It's something that we would have to review. You know, as we extend that date out, our potential costs increase as well. You know, the same as what Public Works is seeing on the project side and for bridges. So it may be in the county's best interest to wrap that up
To
as soon
wrap
as
that
possible.
part up and start the new cell as an entirely new.
Exactly. Yep.
So we're not finalized, I mean, we're quite a ways down the line, but it appears we're gonna be able to acquire about 300 additional acres. And instead of having to, again, a lot of moving parts, we gotta get DEQ permitted and everything, but instead of the plan wholly and solely focused on transporting, there's a chance we're gonna be able to open a new cell for the next 50 to 75 years and not have to haul at a much increased cost garbage out of the county. So Nick's been working on that. We'll know a lot more here in the next few months.
Yeah, definitely. As you can see, staffing FTE, we have the additional FTE to bring us to 33.8 total. And as we discussed, the annual amount added to the reserve for the closure and post-closure is down to 1 million even this year.
And what's the estimated years of life this year?
We're right around the 8 to 10 number still, and so I know every year kind of sounds like, well, that was the same thing last year, right? But it's due to a number of the program changes that we've been able to implement have basically held us right at that number.
Okay.
It's tough to push it a whole lot further out just because of the volume of waste that's accepted. But we have some projects planned to kind of change how our liner and the closure system on our liner is gonna work. And so that's buying us airspace essentially.
And you're doing some exporting.
And we're still currently exporting roughly 35% of our waste out of the county.
That changes, so it's this weird equation, but you guys are doing a good job managing that, and if we can move to a system where we're doing it here, again, we're gonna know that as far as the land acquisition pretty quickly, and then we move into the permitting, which could take a little bit of time, but it's a little bit of a gamble acquiring the land, not knowing whether we can get the permitting, but Nick's relationship with the DEQ, and that you've had conversations with them, there's a more than likely chance we're gonna be able to get through that permitting process. It's a little bit of a chicken egg thing going on, but we've gone ahead and moved forward with the land, acquiring the land.
Yeah, we feel confident that, given our past and being able to bring everything that we have now into regulatory compliance, we've built a strong working relationship with DEQ, and we've continued to foster that relationship over the years. And, so the lines of communication are more open and gives us more confidence moving forward.
You weren't here for the beginning of that. I say the beginning, it was probably going on years and years and years before I got involved. But when I became commissioner in 2015, the lines of communication with the DEQ were not very open.
That was
We
my
had
understanding.
some
Nice
significant,
way of saying that.
we had some significant challenges, and it, I think, has been, our approach to assuring them that we understand the importance of the work that they do and that we want to be compliant and we're committed to be compliant over the years, and the steps that we've all taken in order to get there that has helped that. And it's important for what we have planned for the future, so good job on that. And you've been a great asset to have here to do that work. You're a great fit for the work that you're doing here. It's taken a load off of Scott for sure, and allowed this thing to really become what it's supposed to be and make the changes within the organization that need to be made in order to know exactly what's happening, like separating out the transfer stations from the landfill and being able to analyze the transfer station business model to determine in the future whether it makes sense for the county to own and operate transfer stations, or if there's savings to be had by contracting to the private sector. And we know that we have an experiment to that end happening right now. So you have sort of brought the thing full circle by being here and working on this, and having one go-to guy that's focused only on this is gonna be a good thing. And then again, to get a new cell opened up and to potentially have the ability to subsidize the cost of solid waste operations in Douglas County by taking waste from surrounding counties is an opportunity maybe to keep the cost down for our citizens. And just not having to export trash out of the county and having that as a tool to keep the cost down for solid waste for our citizens. And, seeing this come from Commissioner Freeman and I having to implement solid waste fees for the first time in 40-some years in Douglas County, and the public outcry about doing that, but to, at the very same time, be able to make this system function like it's supposed to, make sure that it's still operational and viable, and to keep the cost down compared to pretty much,
Lowest rates in the state,
pretty much everywhere.
some of the
I mean,
lowest rates.
I don't know of any other county or municipality, any place that has solid waste disposal fees as low as we have here in the county. So I'm pretty proud of this work. I'm not directly involved in it anymore. Commissioner Kress and you and Scott need to take the credit for that. But overall, it's been quite a transition for the county. It's very positive and good job.
Appreciate that, appreciate the support that all the commissioners as well as the other county directors around have been able to provide. You know, I was luckily able to step into a program that had already been brought up so far, and now we're just kind of refining what we're doing.
So the leachate treatment facility is online.
It's being commissioned now. We expect to start seeding, which is the initial phase of startup, next week. So next Tuesday, we'll start that and we'll transition straight into startup, and everything should be humming right along by the end of this fiscal year. So we're in good shape there.
Well, when it gets going, I'd like to see it. It's been something that I worked on in the beginning and handed the baton, but it's, I'd like to see it work when it's all said and done, so let me know when it's operational.
Yeah, I'd love to give a tour, so.
Yeah.
It'll be an exciting step forward for the county and, you know, eventually allow us to be in full control of what's happening with that waste stream, which will be important, you know, because we're not gonna be tied to a third party rate that, you know, we would assume is always gonna increase.
Like, tell them what seeding meant, you said that too.
What's that?
You said we're currently seeding.
Yeah, that's,
That means.
basically we're getting the microorganisms,
Bugs growing.
yeah, all your bugs that are gonna eat up all the bad stuff, they're all getting in there, and we start aerating them. It's a real important step where you know, you have to monitor your die off and make sure that you're kind of feeding the bugs everything that they need to be successful. So if you have a successful seeding, you can pretty much be assured that you'll have a successful startup. So we're right there.
Nice.
I make a motion, we approve it.
I'll second.
Katie's made the motion to tentatively approve solid waste fund. Commissioner Boyce has seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Dan, you've got the public health portion here? So tab 31.
So this is our public health budget for the upcoming year. The revenues anticipate a little bit of a decrease from the state. Just as a reminder, most of the services that we provide in Douglas County are contracted out through DPHN, Douglas Public Health Network. We do have a small program though, the drinking water program that we manage through our department. These are, you know, to talk about as far as changes go, so. Entertain any questions?
Couple things on public health. One is, in this current model of public health delivery, Dan has a person in his office along with himself that spend quite a bit of time monitoring the fiscals of this, including right now going through a triennial review with the state, which is very time consuming. That's not reflected in the budget. And then I also continue to have delegated authority to do contractual work and stuff, so I work very closely with our public health officer and Dan and his financial person upstairs and our contractors to make sure that we're being very efficient in the work that we do. But there's a little more to it than just a 0.25 FTE amount of work that goes on. So,
I will note that the increase in personnel services is due to some additional funding we did receive to help pay for our time here at the county. So that increase is actually offset, although it's buried in the number from the revenues above. So we are getting a little bit back through a new program element.
I'll move tentatively approve the budget.
Commissioner Boyce made the motion to tentatively approve.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Chris has seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. All right. Veteran Services, Mary. Come
Saint
on up.
Mary.
Saint Mary. Tab 32. Hi there.
Hi there, good morning.
Good morning.
Mary Newman, Director of Douglas County Veteran Service Office. First of all, we only have a little tiny increase in our revenue from ODVA, but our state association is gonna be asking for more. And I just returned from a National Association of County Veteran Service Officers Training Conference in Denver. There's a lot less oxygen, there truly is. That association is asking, has promoted a bill that's in Congress which asks for some funding for county veteran service officers on a grant basis from the VA. So hopefully that will pass, but you know how Congress is, so. One of the things that happened at the national conference was we met with the VA Undersecretary Bradsher about a lot of the things that are going on in Douglas County and other places in the country as far as health goes. And it seems that she took very copious notes, so hopefully things will go, will get better for Roseburg VA.
So Undersecretary Bradsher, her job is the Chief Operating Officer of the VA medical system, cemetery, and housing. So her boss is the cabinet member, the actual VA secretary that works for the president. We some veterans and myself had a chance to meet with her in town here a few weeks ago. Pretty high level meeting, but your chance to meet with her in DC was really important also. Or at your conference, I mean.
Yeah. And one of the things they talked about was how hard it is across the country to hire doctors. I didn't realize it wasn't just us. But our office is now fully staffed and has been since last July, which is really great, and we really appreciate your support for keeping us fully funded. One of the things that happened over the past year is the VA PACT Act was passed, and for, if you don't know what the PACT Act is, that opened up VA benefits to a whole lot of other veterans that weren't entitled to benefits, monetary benefits before. And it's mostly based on toxic exposures like Agent Orange and burn pits and all of the chemicals and things that military people are exposed to. So that increased our workload, and we're doing about 10 to 15 new claims a week. And there are a lot of veterans out there that didn't even know that they had a county veteran service office. So that's really good that they're coming in. Our quarterly report to Oregon Department of Veterans Affairs for January to December, we have brought into the county veterans $5.4 million. So I think that's kind of a great little economic development piece to our office. And the other thing that I just wanted to touch on, because it kind of underlines how we facilitate things for veterans. We worked really hard on getting a bill passed in the state legislature for unclaimed cremains of veterans who, and if you remember a few years ago, we had a huge ceremony at the National Cemetery. It took 3 days to inter veterans from World War I were included in the 28 veterans that were found here in Douglas County. And so that, the bill passed and is a law now. And so the mortuaries have to cooperate with the Veteran Service Office to figure out if there are any more veterans that are unclaimed in their facilities, and to keep them from being unclaimed in the future. So and now it's a state law for all the Veteran Service Officers that they have the ability to do that. And been in contact with one of the people in Multnomah County who found approximately 40 veterans in one mortuary up there. And those veterans will be interred at Willamette National on June 1st. So kind of
There's quite a few of us going to that ceremony from Douglas County.
so that's all I have. If you have any questions.
Okay.
A couple things.
Commissioner
One,
Primian?
Mary undersold that bill. She testified multiple times. Her own association killed it the first time and still stayed after it. And hopefully they came around, because you talked about continuing to be a part of them, which would not have been my most favorite thing to do. So thank you for continuing to push on that. She talked about her National Association trip, but she didn't tell you that she was elected as an officer to that organization,
Secretary.
which is quite the honor and really demonstrates and by a pretty good margin. You sent me the vote count. It sort of explains how lucky we are to have Mary here at Douglas County and the quality of not just the work that she does, but she's been able to train her staff to do. And finally, you touched on the economic development piece, but I would contend of all the work that we do here, which is all very important work, on the economic development front, this is one of the biggest economic development drivers that we're able to accomplish. When she talks about those quarterly numbers, they get those dollars, some of them are, back benefits that they've earned that they get, but that's an ongoing, that's an addition to whatever else has happened, and it sort of just sort of accumulates and stacks on top of other benefits that veterans are getting. So as far as a new infusion of dollars into our economy here in Douglas County, this office does an amazing job doing that. And it's sort of a side effect. That's not what your focus is. Your focus is making sure veterans get the benefits that they've earned. But again, the sort of downstream part of that is those dollars come into this economy. Those people live here and they spend those dollars here. So great job.
Thank you.
And I would tentatively move to approve the budget.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Freeman has tentatively made a motion to tentatively approve. Katie has seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
I like the chair.
All right, senior services. Come on up. Tab 33.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning, Jeannie Wright, Director of Senior Services. Glad to be here today. I do have to apologize for the budget. The bottom number there shows us in the use of county general funds, a significant larger amount. And basically what had happened is we have some rollover dollars that we received or going to be receiving is $791,000 added to our coffers. So that's gonna really impact that need way less of general county funds for that. We had a status quo budget, but as you know, there's always additional costs because things just go up in price. So there are some areas, personnel we have. We had last year in our budget some funds that we weren't able to spend either for a program, and basically it was pretty much just put on hold until the state of Oregon was completed with their work with this program. The program is called Oregon Project Medicaid, Oregon Project Independence Medicaid. And this Medicaid piece of it works collaboratively with the Medicaid Aging and People with Disabilities Services. Basically, we're going to be doing case management, ongoing case management for these older individuals that are eligible for this service. There's some benefits about it. Some of the benefits are they're able to access more hours of care. At the present moment, there is no Medicaid services traditionally have a you have to have liens against your property or assets that you have. And this program is not going after that. So this will open the door for many people that are on that balancing point of they will look at income, but it will also be a matter of wages, your stick scales, much like OPI is already, the basic program. So it's gonna give a lot of benefits. They're gonna be able to get more hours. They're gonna be able to stay in their homes longer. It will delay going on regular Medicaid programs, which are a spin down of pretty much leaving someone without any funds at all left and needing that care or in long-term care facilities. So there's a lot of benefits about this program. It's kind of what it will also do is it will help provide, because it's linked into the Medicaid system, it will help provide more consistency in budget funding instead of general revenue from the state of Oregon. So those aspects will be good in that sense. It came from the 1115 waiver that was just recently, a while back passed.
The 1115 waiver is the agreement that the state has with the federal government on how the Medicaid program is run.
Thank you. So it's a new program. It looks June 1st, is the go date of it finally. So we've asked for a vehicle we have hired someone. We're in the process of getting them on board to be the case manager for this. The other thing I wanted to bring up just real quickly is our Veterans Directed Care program for case management. We've been involved in this program with the VA system. We partner with Multnomah County. They're kind of the main agency, AAA, or Area Agency on Aging, and then they siphon out and we work locally with veterans within our communities. The revenue that they get to pick, the individual veteran gets to pick how they wish to use some money in their care. So basically, it could be having a person hired to help them with their daily activities, getting around the house, doing things for them. It could be helping them with their better wellness, all kinds of flexibility in their needs. We would have a case manager assigned to that works on this arduous paperwork that goes between the veterans and the client and the home care worker. Third parties pay out their pay wages, and so we just have a staff person case manage that. We started out from 20,000 revenue back into our coffers to now it's over $108,000 a year. So it's increasingly getting more revenue with that to our budget, plus helping a lot of veterans in the process of that. We expect this to also increase because we're able to bring on another case manager that will be able to help do this as well, along with OPIM. Let's see, the other thing that we've seen, and it's been a struggle, is we have seen more older adults in our population here in Douglas County that have more complex health conditions. Therefore, needing home delivered meals as one of the supports, having meals delivered to their homes to help them stay in their homes and get some good nutrition. And that has boosted up our our nutrition program, but there are some programs that we're looking at. One of them is, through that 1115 waiver, there's an option of proposal that we're working with the Oregon Wellness Network that will be working with individuals that may be eligible for Medicaid services such as their health insurance paid. It's called those types of services as a managed care that would maybe including meals in their program. Those would be medically tailored meals. So we may be providing those medically tailored meals, which we would receive a reimbursement back, and then we would have a fee for an assessment that we would provide and those types of things. Some of the benefits about this is we may be serving these people already with our other meal program. We just don't know that necessarily because that's not part of our regular criteria to know those things. The other part is that it could also be a revenue to help support nutrition program in our communities, and these are people we're already serving or we should be serving. So they're older adults that are eligible for meals. So that's about it. If you have questions.
So I'm no longer your liaison, I missed that work. Tom stole that from me, but the complexity of your department and all the different programs, I think is probably the most complex of any of our departments. I mean, we just were talking to Nick about the DEQ and the regulatory stuff, and that seems pretty complex until you get into all the different stuff you do. And all these different programs of all these requirements and eligibility and, you talked about bureaucracy or accounts and keeping track of dollars. It is incredible what you're able to do. But more important, what you're doing is helping seniors in our county. Project Independence and now the new Project Independence Medicaid. Those programs are designed to keep people aging in place. It keeps them in their homes so they don't go to a higher level of care, which is more expensive, but really less quality. I mean, seniors that just need a little bit of help, whether that's, a little bit of cleaning, a little bit of making sure their medications, laid out correctly for them, or in some cases it's companionship. I mean, it's simply an opportunity to help them stay in their homes that they've earned and paid for and can do well in is incredibly important. Then other little things pop up, like during Snowmageddon, having to feed seniors that historically you feed with senior volunteers. You work through that, and with the assistance of county employees, we're able to continue that important mission of literally feeding these seniors that depend on these meals. And then more recently, with what's going on down at the old Forest Glen, I know they have a new name, but your staff stepped up and as part of the response team, ongoing response team, to make sure those people are getting what they need and what services you have able to provide. Again, that's something we didn't plan for. It's something you just flex and adjust to and take care of. So thank you for the work you're doing. Really, as these big emergencies happen, we recognize the importance of the work you do. And I've actually asked our emergency manager to include your department in most of our emergency plans because oftentimes people don't realize, if you have a Cascadia event or some major event, these seniors rely on this food. They don't have a backup plan. So making sure that, you're included in those big emergency plans is really important. So thank you. And with that, I'll make a motion to approve the budget.
Second.
Commissioner Freeman's made a motion to tentatively approve. Commissioner Boyce has seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you very much, appreciate it. Committee members, we have 20 minutes before we're a little ahead of schedule. We've got Michael back there if he's prepared to present. We also have a whole bunch, Dan can do some of those this afternoon if you're open to it.
Choose our
Continue to
time,
go till 11:30.
please.
Okay. Michael, come on up. And that is tab 11.
there, excuse me, got allergies. There was a handout for.
Thanks, sir.
And, thank you.
So good morning, Michael Kurtz, Human Resources Director. So, small budget, small staff, but we do quite a bit of work throughout the county, working with all the different departments. I decided this year to put together a little bit of a handout to kind of, so I don't have to spend so much time just talking about what we do, but also just so you have something you can take with you. Just kind of take a look at what the breadth of what we do in the Human Resources Department. So, just quickly has our fiscal year highlights, a little summary of the different aspects of the work that we do. One of the overlooked areas of work that we do in Human Resources is our Risk Management Division, which I thought was a good idea to highlight this year as well. And lastly, our Public Affairs Office. So, jump right into our budget. So it pretty much stays the same in terms of FTE. Our biggest changes on the personnel side has to do with increases to PERS and all the additional roll-ups included on personnel. On the materials and services side, we don't have much of a change. In fact, I think it's less than a $400 difference there. That is, some adjustments were made there in terms of computer replacements. We had quite a few last year, we have fewer this year. Although going into next year, I have all 4 of our labor agreements up for renewal. So I put a little bit more money into our legal services to provide some consultation services.
Some counseling in there too.
I can do that as well. So not a whole lot of change. So if there's any questions or I can answer.
I feel like I'm doing all the talking. Am I doing all the talking?
I think we're even.
So, we started this public affairs thing, really out of a need after the shooting we had at the college. The Board of Commissioners on behalf of the county really didn't have a good mechanism to communicate with the public, and through the challenges we've had with budgeting and other issues that we've had going on here, the need for the public to know what the county's doing on their behalf has probably never been greater than it is today. We needed that to be somewhere. We didn't know which department to put it under. Your past experience in the military doing this type of work, really, it made a lot of sense for you to take that on from our point of view. I'm sure you were plenty busy doing other stuff, but you and Public Affairs team have done an amazing job helping us to communicate to the public the work that we're doing on their behalf. And it has translated into actually helping, our veterans community and other things that we're involved in, be able to communicate what they're doing too. So they do a fantastic job. We have developed over time a great relationship with the Sheriff's Department and their Public Affairs team over there, to where we're all sort of pulling on the same end of the rope and working well together. Thank you for doing that. You talked a little bit about risk management. I think people would be surprised at the amount of opportunity the public feels to sue this county is. And I think that's probably the same for every government agency. But you have a team, you have an individual up there. It seems like a team that is dedicated to doing that, and they do a fantastic job. We all participate in that as commissioners also. All the litigation liability, no matter which department it is, falls on the commissioners, working with Michael and his office to come to conclusion on those litigation cases. And then finally, the challenges around the state constantly changing the laws on employment. All of us are either current employers or past employers, so we know this. I don't know that the general public understands how often and how dramatic the state changes the laws around employing people. And you are always up to speed on that, and your department makes sure that we're doing our very best to follow all the current rules and laws. So thank you for that work that you're doing.
Michael, to add on to that, I will tell you that it never ceases to amaze me the amount of work that you get done. You personally and your entire department, and the money that we spend on HR is a necessary thing, but to me, it's some of the best money that we spend. It's everything from ensuring that we have the best and most affordable insurance for every employee at the county, to pay equity regulation from the state, to risk management. The public affairs thing is fairly new, but so important. I didn't realize how important it was and how capable it would make the county to the community by implementing that strategy. That came from Commissioner Freeman and his experience in the legislature and other places. Just this morning, we had the Umpqua Economic Development Partnership put on a big economic development summit in Douglas County this weekend and hired a professional PR firm to help implement that. And one of our folks who didn't even attend the summit sent out a newsletter about it, and the feedback that we got was that the quality of work that came from your department and this individual was superior to the organization that he paid to do that work. And Commissioner Freeman also touched on the things that we as a county have been able to do to help other organizations within the community because of that department, the Reese Across America program, and all the fingers of work that we have that we're going on with the veterans community, the Legion of Honor and the Four Chaplains ceremony, and the things that we've been invited to just attend as commissioners for public engagement purposes. And because of our attendance at those things and your creative staff being able to say, hey, there's a nexus here, and what if we, and then take the ball and run with it. It's been exciting to watch and a great thing to be a part of. So your department is always extremely organized, very efficient, very professional in everything that you do, and we're lucky to have you.
Well, I think oftentimes people look at HR as the place you go when you want to get a no answer. And it's really my goal to make sure our office works towards finding solutions, solving problems, helping departments get to where they need to get to, figuring out, within the framework of the laws and the rules, how do we get to whatever operational end and goal that we're trying to meet and achieve. And that's a value that I try to instill in my staff. I have an outstanding staff, as you all know, who do great work, and they all come to work with that same mindset.
Well, and let's face it too, when we talk about this a little bit, and not to belabor a point, but really, you got a staff, you talk about human resources, you got a staff about 4. Because we got all these other things that they're doing up there that we're putting under this department. But really, for human resources, we got about 4 people in it with 500 FTE organization. And how many other companies that have that kind of numbers only are doing it with 4 people? So, job well done.
Move to tentatively approve the HR budget.
Okay. Commissioner Freeman's made the motion, Commissioner Kress seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it.
You bang ours out?
Yeah, let's move on to tab 2 and
Tab 2, okay.
commissioners.
This time we don't have to come back after lunch.
We don't.
That may be stretching it a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, and looking at their budget, just general increases in personnel services along with general county, and no significant changes in their budget.
Continue, same FTE.
Alright.
So were you able to find the thing what the other commissioners' offices were costing to run their office for me?
Which was that?
To know how much the other commissioner's office in the other counties were costing, you were gonna work on that.
If you look at just the commissioners themselves, it's similar, but when you add on the fact that the staffing around the administrator's office, it's just, there's no comparison. I mean, it's just
Still running pretty lean.
hundreds of thousands of dollars difference, yeah.
I make a motion to approve the budget.
Okay, Kay's made the motion to approve.
I might should second that.
I will second that. Any other discussion, questions? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Tab number 9, it's our financial services.
So this is a department that I manage, which includes 16 FTE. We did, as Scott Adams mentioned, we did add an FTE, county project manager that does kind of general county projects, IT related and otherwise. And with that, in order to keep things level, I removed an FTE in a position that I've had a hard time filling. And we'll just deal with that as we go. With merit increases and the 3% COLA, personnel services are set to increase at 8%, and materials and services, a little bit of change there. Some of it because of the county project manager is a little bit of materials and services caused for that increase.
Okay.
We'll move to tentatively approve the financial services budget.
Commissioner Freeman has made the motion.
I'll second.
Commissioner Boyce has seconded. Any other discussion?
Just a quick comment that,
Yeah.
again, your department is relatively lean, keep track of a lot of different things for a lot of different departments, including public health that we've kind of adopted. And you continue to receive financial award from the federal organization that makes sure we're doing things right. And you should be commended for that. And you're relatively new in this role, although you're not the new guy anymore. So you're doing a great job. Thank you.
I just wanna add, and I have a lot of my staff here in the room, that I have a great staff, and they, you know, the product produced here takes countless hours, and they should be commended for their work, and they do a great job, and I certainly couldn't do this on my own, so.
Fun, we'll like get new systems and stuff for everybody to learn,
Yeah.
right? Keep it interesting.
Just wanted to add that, I'm very appreciative of my staff.
We are all very appreciative,
Yes.
so. Motion and a second. Nothing else? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
More.
17, tab 17, non-departmental. I think we can get through that.
So non-departmental is a, kind of I wouldn't call it a catch-all, but it's kind of for expenses that are either don't have a home in any other department, or they are for services that are countywide services that really don't have a department to be placed in, so they're part of the general fund. They do get allocated out through our allocation method to the departments that produce revenues that are able to support that charge, and the expenditures are relatively unchanged in here.
So Dan, I appreciate the explanation, as accurate as it is. For someone who really doesn't see the big picture of county government, it's still fairly vague. Can you give us an example?
Yeah.
What might be in there?
So we've got two things that come to mind. One is some grant funding. You'll see in there for mediation services and ADAPT and things like that. Those are for grants that are LIPSIC's in there. stuff that really doesn't have a
No,
home
no other department to put
anywhere
it in.
else. So we put it in the general fund under this non-departmental.
Yep.
It's largely managed by my department, these things in conjunction with the other departments that directly work with it, which are multiple in a lot of cases. There's some, a lot of software related things that are countywide that get placed into there, like our financial services software, our payroll software gets put in there. Things that are used countywide. I mean, I suppose they could be placed in my budget, but this is kind of an extension of that anyway, so. That, and then some dues and memberships that the county is involved with, associations, get placed into there too. And then I usually have some contingency type expenses in there for any assistance we wanna give to other government agents, cities and nonprofits and things like that.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep.
Move
Okay.
tentatively approve the budget.
Commissioner
I'll
Boyce
second
made motion to approve, Commissioner Kress has seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously, and I think at that one right there, if it's okay with everybody, we'll adjourn for lunch and reconvene back at 1:15. Adjourned.
Thank you.